talk about what happened to me at Target? You don't remember?
No.
Okay. So
Was I in Target?
No.
Oh, well then how would I even know?
I just told the story to Reagan.
Oh.
So I went to Target in search of a radio. Just AM, FM radio. Don't look at me like, why?
Okay.
I just needed a radio. And so I go in, have looked up their radios on their website.
Hold on, I'll Amazon it.
No. I needed a radio long ago. And
do they make them anymore?
This was the debate. So this is one of those things when you realize the age you are, right?
Yeah.
So I go back to electronics where a radio would be. And then my secondary choice, because you always like to say, like, I like to think of the 7 forks in the road before I even open my mouth.
Right.
So I'm thinking to myself, if radios are not in electronics, might they be in bedroom bath?
I'm still back at they make radios anymore.
At an end cap maybe, or like in the camping area? I don't know. So
go to the Smithsonian. That's probably awesome.
I know, because then I was even thinking, God, I don't want a battery operated one. I want one you can plug into the wall.
Uh-huh.
And so they have them on the website. I don't have time. I need it now. Don't ask why. And all of them say available for shipping in like 2 weeks even. So then I give you the Amazon thing, but whatever. So I go back and I said, hey guys, because there's 3 people walking around, where can I get a radio? And so the guy who works with electronics, he was like, oh, well, hold on. And he does his scanner button thing. And he's like, I'm not showing that we have any of those in the store. And I was like, nothing? Like, nada. Like a 75-year-old man walks in, he needs to wake up to, I don't know, Frank Sinatra in the morning or something on the radio maybe. I don't know who would play that, but...
Your iPhone?
Yeah. But he doesn't, he's 75. His wife died. He doesn't have I don't know. But let's just say, what's he supposed to do? Go on Amazon? Like,
yeah.
How's he supposed to get his radio if we're not even supplying AM, FM radios at Target anymore?
But who uses them?
I needed one. My grandmother uses one every day. She plays it in the kitchen when she's gone for, so the people think she's there.
That's a scanner. That's a radio. That's a police scanner.
She listens to KILJ in the morning.
I'll give you that. It seemed like my career started out at an AM radio station.
Do you want to tell us what year that was?
Jesus was a Jew. It was a long time ago in a land far, far away. But how I fell in love with radio, my dad's best friend owned the local radio station where we lived, and it was inside of a little fifth wheel trailer down on the beach. And I used to go down there and deliver things to their offices, and that's where at the time they call it DJ, but would just sit inside that little fifth wheel and play records. And I thought, that is it. That has to be the biggest. And then I figured out what FM and 100,000 watts was.
And how old were you when you saw that?
When I first saw the little fifth wheel, probably 7 years old.
No, I think I was about 7 years old when I was like, oh God, that's the job. It was kind of like a semi-traumatic experience. I did get left home alone accidentally at 7, and one thing led to another. And I was delivered to my mom then in the afternoon while she was at work, and she was working at the Zales jewelry store.
And that's how you knew you wanted to be in radio?
No, it's how I knew I wanted to be in jewelry, which I did previously.
Oh, okay. I thought it was still back about me.
Oh.
So that's when the first time you went in a jewelry store.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a big jewelry person. Most people would find that surprising.
It's funny you say that. We had a conversation with somebody that we hope to interview on the podcast soon, Viana. Mm-hmm. And she just said the persona that people have of you is very different than the real you. I mean, right?
Yes, she did say that.
What do you think is people's biggest misconception about you? Because you started in radio in your 20s, so you've had a fan base. Your prior radio persona was named
Lucy Lips,
and
which was a nickname I had when I was a little girl because I would constantly tattle on my brother. And so we're 11, 12 years apart. So, my family would say, Lucy Lips, before you tattle on somebody, loose lips sink ships.
And what would your radio persona do? Like, what was your show?
Well, I worked for a shock radio group out of Houston. And gosh, everything that you can think of in shock radio. And then Lucy Lips was the skirt with the dirt, and I was the entertainment reporter. And I also had a segment that love lines that I would fix people up or give love advice.
And you did this for how many years?
Radio for 10, and in between I did television, and then got married in 2002. So, and I had one of the first entertainment websites on the internet. There was less than 5,000 websites out when I started mine, and that was in 93.
So your professional career pre-marriage
is old enough to buy a beer.
Yeah. Excuse me. No, was how many years?
Well, if I started in 92, that'd be 30 years ago. And Forbes put me on the cover as Queen of the Internet. That was pretty cool. And I said, I just happened to be the first girl that they found that didn't look like Woz or Bill Gates, that could code without Coke bottle glasses.
Okay, and I know that we like to talk about, in life that do you regret or not regret, but what was that one job offer that you wish you hadn't turned down?
Mm-hmm. My friend that lives in Dallas, and we met during the very, very early days of the internet. We met in 95, and he had a company, and he was literally laying like Cat 5 cables, and we were at a bar restaurant in New York, and we're going to do a live chat online. So you're talking 1995, that was really a big deal.
Well, and everybody still had, dial-up internet.
Dial-up, and yeah, you could chat live. And this was an event for Playboy, and it was Mark Cuban. So we got to be good friends. But, he's laying cable. He's doing all the grunt work. And the hands are dirty. I mean, he looks like any other worker out there. And he'd already had one company and sold it and for like $5 million. So he was doing well. And so he told me, he said, I want you to come work for me. And he said, I have an idea for a company. And it was called, at the time, AudioNet. And he said, you'll be able to hear the Hoosiers on the internet.
And for those of us like me.
And me.
The Hoosiers are?
The Indiana basketball. But I didn't even know what a Hoosier was when he was telling me. This guy was just so passionate. And he said, you'll be able to hear it. And you'll be able to hear all this on the internet. And you'll be able to interact. And look, I was already there. I mean, I was right alongside. I believed in everything he was saying. And I said, but I work for a company I did at the time called Metro Networks. So anywhere you were in the world, a relatively good-sized city, there's a helicopter, in the air and giving on the news and traffic. And I worked for the company that was the air traffic supply. So I said, all I have to do is go to the chairman of my company and explain to him he's an entrepreneur just like you. I said, I'll explain to him how great this is going to be. And then we have stations in multiple countries and, all over the world. And I said, and then that way they just drop it in the can and you won't have to upsell it. Well, I'm patting myself on the back thinking I'm pretty smart. So I reach out to the chairman of my company and make an appointment with his assistant that, go up to like the 31st floor. And I have somebody that I want to introduce you to. And Mark and I had just told you how long ago this was. We went to an Eckerd Drugs, and for $1.79, we got the little plastic binder that it's just like a sheet of vellum. It had the little binder that you put down the side. Mm-hmm. And to put his typed up, maybe 6-page business plan in. I still have that business plan somewhere, Then it ended up turning to broadcast.com. So we go in, and I'm so excited because Mark was obviously Mark Cuban, but he wasn't known.
He wasn't
Mark Cuban. And to me, he hasn't changed one bit. He's just had different platforms for people to see him. But so we go into the chairman of my company's office, and I'm really excited to, introduce them. And he explains what this is going to do, and you'll be able to hear this on the internet. And he looked at him, the chairman of the company, was named David, and he said, "The internet's a flash in the pan." What? He said, "Yeah." He said, "That's just what people are talking about because it's a slow news cycle." He goes, "It's a fad. It won't be here 2 years from now." And he says, "So I hope," he looks straight at Mark and says, "I hope you're not feeding her a load of crap." He said, "Because she's a really good employee and we would hate to lose her." He said, "Because what you have just isn't tangible. No one's ever going to buy into that." I was devastated. Just devastated the way he talked to Mark. And, I had put Mark in the position. So, I felt like I was.
And now you already had a following of your own on your
website.
Right. So you were seeing the proof that this is.
Right.
Yes.
Yes. And so I already knew exactly the kind of power that this could garnish. And I just was in tears by the time we hit the elevator and we were going down. And Mark's like, "It's not your fault." He goes, "Look, I will pay you whatever they pay you. We'll move your website over. We'll have our team work on it." And he says, "I want you to come work for me." Well, at the time, I think he had 3 or 4 employees, and they were still in his partner's mother's garage. So, but I was really excited. He said, "You'll have stock, all these things." So I went back and I was talking to my family and I said, "And he's offered me stock." And that sounds very legit, important. And a friend of my family said, "No way. Half of nothing's nothing. Mark my word. There is no internet company that will ever go public."
Wow.
He goes, "There's no way to analyze it. It's just air. It won't ever happen." I didn't take the job.
Wow.
But Mark did give me some advice. He said, "Hey, you want to get even with your boss?" And I go, "Yeah, he embarrassed me." He said, "Go register his company." I said, "But I just worked there." And he said, "Go register it." So we went back to my apartment, registered the name of the company, and back then it was on a company called Internet. And I bought the domain, and about 6 months later, I get a phone call from the chairman of the company, and he called me, and they were bought out by a company called Westwood One, which is huge. And
so they never wanted it for themselves. They needed it.
They needed it for their merger. They've realized that somebody else owned it. And he called me and he said, "I want my domain back." I said, "Oh, well, no, you don't need it, technically." I said, "Because this is a flash in the pan. It's not going to be around in 2 years. Why in the world would you need it?"
Wow.
And I said, "It's for sale, but it's not on sale." Oh, did I mention I wasn't working there anymore at the time?
Or you weren't shortly after.
Yeah, exactly. But ended up selling them back the domain, and they sold to Westwood One for well over $1 billion.
And what'd you sell the domain to them for?
Low 6 figures, very low 6 figures.
Nice.
Yeah. And that's how my obsession with buying domain names began. I used to own sandwiches.com. I also own iflewcoachforyou.com.
Oh, that's romantic.
I keep thinking that JetBlue. I saw it one of the Bachelorette shows.
I flew coach for you. Who should use that as a marketing ploy?
Southwest or JetBlue.
Or a dating company.
One of the Bachelor girls. She didn't get a rose, and she looked
Don't
at the
most
guys.
of them not get roses?
Well, I don't know. She didn't. I never watched the show, but I was talking about she didn't. She didn't get a rose. And
Hold on. You just like royally ticked off like anybody who's even in that 20 to 40-year-old heterosexual happily in love genre, right? By saying I've never watched The Bachelor.
Well, no, not never watched it. I'll here or there. I'm not a solid follower.
Gotcha.
And so the little girl a young lady that the guy didn't give her.
I think little girl fits.
Well, actually, I had babysat this girl when she was a little girl. And her last name is Rose. And that was kind of the whole thing, that she didn't get a rose. And so we're watching it because Erica's on it. And she turns around and looks at him and she goes, I flew coach for you. Couldn't get to my computer any faster.
Yeah.
Things like that.
I think it's a good one. So a funny story because I just told it again, when we went to what we hope this podcast brings, but we went to, was it the Home Depot or Lowe's? One of those shows.
Oh.
One of those. We went to both, but we ended up at Home Depot.
I go to those about as often as I watch The Bachelor.
Right. So we go to Home Depot, and Johnny from Home Depot, shout out to Johnny from Home Depot, was awesome. He helped us, and Reagan was with us. And at one point he goes, wait, are y'all always this fun? And Reagan turns around and she said, I don't know. I just became a part of y'all, but I think we are.
Reagan, the wonder producer.
Mm-hmm. Shout out, she just got married.
Yeah.
Did I say that already?
Yes.
Well, she did give great advice. I said, right before we started filming, I said something about being nervous. And she said, my dad is a police officer, and he gave me great advice before walking down the aisle a couple weeks ago. And, she said that he informed her that, you do all the prep work that you can, but at the end of the day.
Yeah, but he's talking to her. He's SWAT. He's talking to her like he's going into a raid.
Right. And she's like, Dad, I'm getting ready to walk down the aisle. Like, I don't know if this applies here.
I don't really need a battering ram and a flashbang.
And he was like, no, it does. Like, you do all the prep work, and then at some point, you just got to knock down the door. Yeah. And you're at that place now. And she was like, okay, great. And then, everybody rises. But she said, that's where you and Christy are. Like, you've done the prep work. What do you think about talking about what kicked off the prep work?
I was just thinking that same thing. How it all began.
Mm-hmm.
I was diagnosed with strokes 2021. And after suffering from these said strokes, my speech became a little wonky as expected along the way. So I was going through the TikTok, as I sound it, to make me sound 100 years old. Mm-hmm. And I'm flipping through, and I see this ad, and my phone is freezing every time this ad comes on. And I'm trying to flick through it, and I'm getting mad at my phone. And you're driving. You're like, what are you doing? And I said, have you ever heard of this guy, Matt Rife? You go, no. I said, he is freaking adorable. And I said, he's a comedian. And this commercial keeps coming up. And I said, it's comedy camp in Los Angeles. And it's hosted by Leno and Adam Carolla. Mm-hmm. And you said, I think you should do it. That would help your speech. And I said, bitch, I signed you up too. Mm-hmm. Yep. And so we went. We made great friends. We're going back next month.
And so the camp, which hopefully we'll have as a guest on the show, David Fishof, who is the
Rock
OG.
Camp. He is amazing.
Yeah, he has produced these 23 or 24, 25 probably now, rock and roll camps over the years.
And he does like 1/4, so 4.
Yeah, where you can go, get your jam on with your favorite artist.
Gene Simmons, Roger Daltrey, The Who, Kiss. Next month he's having Van Halen.
I love Van. See, we should go to
know.
rock camp. But I can't play anything.
I can't either.
But I mean, they need groupies, right?
Right, we need groupies. That's it.
So yes. So David Fishof has put on these rock camps
Go to
for all these years
Amazon
and watch.
there's a movie called Fantasy Rock Camp or just Rock Camp.
They'll find it either way. But
And it talks about David's start and how he was, this sports agent. But
who did he bring back together?
The Monkees. And he took Ringo. He managed Ringo Starr. And he just a plethora and just one of the kindest people. He defies anything bad you've ever heard about Hollywood.
Yeah, and I feel like you get the sense about him that he has this, like most people do, but in his industry, acquired an education that most people couldn't hope to even pay for.
Right.
And his desire and willingness to share all that knowledge and condense it and make it impactful to probably change the shape and future aspect of somebody's life.
Right.
I mean, the people we met and people who maybe didn't have the courage to do that before they went, or, didn't have a community to help support them, found out what their passion was or got the kickoff to start that passion.
And David's so quick to lend, he brought some of the top agents. He brought a lot of people in. Caroline Ray was a camp counselor who was Carol Leifer.
Sorry, I think I just won your next Amazon purchase on eBay. Whoopsie. Anyways, yes. So 4 days. And then one of my favorite stories, I think is that last night. So you go for 4 days. You're there Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And Thursday night, Friday night, and Saturday night, you get tickets to go watch other comedians perform. Mm-hmm. And so it's in some of the most, renowned.
Yeah, iconic. The Comedy Store, the Improv.
And so on the
Factory.
last Saturday, they're telling all of us that we have the opportunity to perform on the last day and you get like 3 minutes. And I'm thinking all to myself, well, as soon as Christy gets the microphone, everybody else's time is shot. So I'll give her my time at least, and I don't need to go up there. And they kept saying, no, you guys should do a thing together. And I was like, oh, no. And they had 2 comedians had tried to get us to roast each other. And it was an epic fail. Right. But I was really apprehensive, honestly, about going up there with you. I thought, at the end of the day, I could just hand you the microphone and not be worried. And so we had nothing prepared. We went to the Improv on Saturday night, and the guy who was performing looked at all of us because we had our lanyards on to get into all the clubs. Right. And he was like, wait, what are y'all?
Some convention.
Is this a convention? I need to understand what's happening here. And somebody shouted out, we're at comedy camp. And he was like, he looked around the audience and he saw this like curiously terrified look on, I think, all of our faces and realized there was a lot of us at comedy camp. And he was like, I need the rundown. What does this mean? And somebody said, well, Jay Leno, Adam Carolla, you pay X amount of dollars, and you get to come for 4 days. And then on the final day, you get to perform here tomorrow. And he was like, oh, wait, what? It was like somebody had let all the air out of a balloon. And he was like, I have been literally cutting my teeth in this city for years, just scraping by, hoping to perform on this stage. And y'all bought passes? You are those bitches? And we're like, we're here.
Like the people at Disney that come with a VIP host.
Yes.
To the front of the line.
I kind of hated us in that moment for him even. But he was very kind, gave us some great advice, and, all the shows were fantastic. But then, on the final day, we snuck off in a corner with, I think, both of our iPads while we begged every other person to go before us so we could write a script. Like, what are we going to talk about? And, it was effortless, I think, at the end of the day to get it finished. But the response from people saying, like, why aren't you at least sharing this on some aspect? Or, you have something. Or every time we go someplace, people either ask us what?
Are y'all related? Are y'all sisters?
And if we don't answer that or we do answer that, then they ask us,
How'd y'all meet? Without fail. People are nosy.
people are nosy.
But so when we left there, we realized that we were onto something, and we got some great advice from Jay Leno, and he was like, "Keep it authentic."
Can I just brag on Jay Leno?
He was.
If you've ever heard anything bad about the man, I promise you it was a lie.
I've never heard anything bad about it.
I just, I could not have been more profoundly delighted.
So humble, zero ego.
I mean, and to give the advice he gave that, when he would have content sent in from writers, he didn't want anybody's name on it. He didn't want to know if it was a man or a woman, how old they were, whatever. He didn't want to know anything.
Show any favoritism.
Just give me the content. And that to me in that era, I guess, kind of is a big deal.
Yeah.
Especially with all the Me Too stuff that came out. Like, I don't know. I think my tendency is to assume not the best in most industry men of that age.
Well, I mean, you look at Johnny Carson had something like 8 or 9 wives.
What?
Yeah, or 5. I don't know. He had a small.
I feel like I should tell
WNBA
people
team.
before we get too deep into this that I didn't watch TV for like any of my life prior to
Weren't
knowing
you
you.
Amish?
Well, close. I mean, no. From Iowa, yes. I don't know.
Isn't throwing shade on the Amish, so nobody come at me. They're not going to hear it anyway.
I mean, I could go. Maybe I might have better luck getting a radio from them.
Exactly.
No, not Amish. But so a lot of times, I might know stuff from the 80s because when I was growing up and lived with my grandparents, I watched what they watched. So I got 80s television. But the 20 years really prior to knowing you, it was either the Golden Girls or reruns of Cheers or old clips of John and Marlena from Days of Our Lives. But that's
I've never seen any of those.
That's it. Maybe on a good day, I'd watch our favorite movie, which is
shit. I didn't know there'd be a test.
Come on, really?
I had a stroke. That's what I'm going to go with.
The Unsinkable Molly Brown.
Oh yeah.
So I don't know current.
And that's what, the 1950s or something?
Yeah. But I don't know current artists, athletes.
I'm kind of the same way.
Actors. Like, you watch any of the Grammys or the Emmys, or I don't know who anybody is. I mean, I feel like right now the only person who I know is Bunny and J-Lo. Jelly Roll.
I love them. Can I just say I'm obsessed with Jelly Roll and Bunny? They just look like so much fun. Mm-hmm. And they have no filter. And for some reason, some of the stories that she retells and shares, I would feel uncomfortable if somebody I knew reiterated some of those intimate details.
She doesn't.
She does it, and it's endearing and warm. I mean,
that is so true.
You know, if somebody said, "Yeah, I used to make $20,000 a night as a hooker," I'd be at a loss for words. She does it, and you
kind of hang on her every word.
Yeah.
Maybe what she does well is she's so fully authentic that you can't. It would be inhumane to dislike her because she embraces herself so fully that's what acceptance really is.
Unfortunately, there's always going to be haters.
Right. There's always going to be haters, but what I'm saying is that's why you can't help but love her, because she's 100, I believe. And if she's not, Bunny, you're doing a good job because, you show people, I think, what it means to be absolutely okay with yourself and to have arrived no matter what the cost or the sacrifice.
And it's authentic. Mm-hmm. And I don't mean that in his ego-driven way, loves herself. Girlfriend grew up swimming with the sharks. I don't think you're going to get much past her. Mm-mm. She's got an IQ and street smart. If we were taking applications for new best friends,
I'm asking.
Yeah, because she is, and he just loves her and hangs on her every word. And I didn't never notice them until the CMTs when he was up for the big award, and I kept seeing all the tattoos on his face. I was like, what is he saying? I didn't even know. And that was only maybe 6 months ago with the CMTs. And I said, wow. I said, look at the girls with him. That lady, I said, she's gorgeous. And you kind of immediately would think somebody becomes famous and then they get somebody that gorgeous.
Right, which I think what the general public assumes when they see
Right.
them, right? What they've talked about.
Unfortunately, I
Right.
would fall, and that's kind of what I thought when I first looked at them. He
I mean-
was living in his car in a van and had a child, an infant.
No, girlfriend showed
Took care of
up.
him.
Right.
She goes,
no.
I got you. She goes, and even if it doesn't work out between us, I've still got you and that little girl. They're the new George and Tammy.
Mm-hmm.
Stand. That's what Bunny should do, is a remake of Stand By My Man.
Yeah, she should. Do you want to be a backup singer?
No.
Can I be a backup dancer?
Yes. You could do both. It'd be a twofer.
Oh, well, we won't.
I don't
want
want to do anything aerobic and nobody wants to hear me sing.
Okay, I'll give you that. Okay, so sorry for the sidestep. So after we finished comedy camp and we had a meeting with David,
Mm-hmm.
and he was like, girls.
David Fishof. Fabulous.
Yeah, David Fishof was like, look, what are you waiting for? And aside from making sure that your heart would keep working,
Yeah.
which we had a little health scare. Do you want to talk about that?
Well, it only lasted 10 seconds, so there's not much to talk about. My heart stopped for 10 seconds.
So that put like a little kink in our plan, but I have to say I was doing the math the other day that we went to comedy camp at the beginning of October, first one, and October, November, December. So we'll be going back 5 months later, having fully executed our plan, put it to practice, hired the appropriate parties, and here we are.
And apparently all the old bands getting back together. Everybody from camp. Everybody there couldn't have been any kinder, down to the agents, the managers. I mean, they took you through beginning to end how it worked.
And I feel like, again, what we said about David, you couldn't pay for that knowledge. And
He just loves what he does, and those people love him.
to put it in a package and say, okay, here is, if this is, you want your crash course, here you go. Okay, Christy,
Liz.
how many years post your radio career have you wanted to get back in broadcasting?
Oh, every year. It never leaves your blood.
And what's one thing that people say about you when you're in the crowd or you're in a room where there's a microphone?
That I'm going to gravitate towards it. I'm not a singer, but I need everyone to hear my stories.
So I just feel like an introduction of the podcast is, I'm going to go out on a limb and just say that since becoming your friend, having witnessed everybody's desire to gravitate to you when you're in a room and you are telling a story is unmatched. And Reagan and I were just talking about it, that you can captivate a room and you have the same enthusiasm, and that's the art of storytelling, I think, has been lost. The way you're able to tell a story with so much enthusiasm, whether it's 10 times, whether it's 20 times, is a gift that most people don't have.
Well, it's their first time.
Right. No, I know. But that to me is so captivating. And when I think about what other people are getting on podcasts to talk about and share, and whether it's political or not, or, current events or whatever, your ability to highlight somebody's personal accomplishments in their life and maybe get inquisitive about the things that they've been through.
And my own self-deprecating moments.
Well, yeah, we have to have a little bit of comedic flair thrown in there, and, who better to make fun of than yourself?
True.
I've had so many people ask me, okay, what's your podcast going to be about? What's it going to be about? And I can't wait to find out is kind of my answer.
Buy the ticket, take the ride.
Yeah. Similarly to when I moved to Texas, kind of on a whim, and we'll tell that story at a later time. But I think that having reached, I'll be 40 in a couple months, you think about goals or challenges or, things that you set for yourself that you see in the future and that they never materialize. And you figure out later that there was a reason why they didn't materialize, or maybe you ran out of time or money or the ability, whatever it is. I just feel like there's certain aspects about this that have always been part of that materialization goal for me on some level, whether it's connecting women that need to feel empowered or uplifted, or showing
There needs to be a lot more of that, by
right,
the way.
or showing authenticity in a way that feels brave and uninhibited and
Vulnerable.
yeah, very vulnerable and doubtful even of oneself, but like more, let's coin a phrase, like more like Bunny, like I'm just showing up as me, and I've even had flack for that for this last year, and you've seen that, and trying to be somebody that speaks the truth to the 10th degree while still trying to respect other people's feelings, while still maintaining boundaries and always showing up for myself first, is the lesson that I would want to teach to my nieces and, my nephews. And that I feel like other women gravitate to that in other women, and they're looking for it more and more. And I feel like you and I found that in each other when we became friends. And
Instantly.
And I feel like that's what people gravitate to with us when they see us together. But your ability to be vulnerable and to be real with people that you don't know and you meet at random, and you're very willing to help and sacrifice even to try to do for somebody else. And I think that the idea of that you've just made it because is the worst preconceived idea about you there could ever be, because if anybody has cut their teeth to be where they are in life, in my belief, that's you.
Well, thank you.
Well, no, but that, nobody handed you anything, and you've walked away from more than you've ever had to try to accommodate other people's opinions or thoughts of your best interest while walking away and navigating away from your own inner knowing. And I'm really proud of what I've seen you accomplish just in the last few years of knowing you, and saying, I want to be more true to myself. I want to be authentic. I want to share that message, and I want to help anybody else who feels slighted by the world like I have or like I might, and let's get through it together versus putting up a facade of what we aren't.
Right. There's no time for that. This is not a dress rehearsal. This is the only life that we're given. And I think in our 20s and in our 30s, we take that for granted. And it's not usually until something tragic happens in our life, or maybe we hit a rock bottom, or we see something that we have no control over, and life is just going by at warp speed. And, John Lennon said it best: life is what happens when you're making plans. And it can all go away at the drop of a hat. So why not follow what absolutely is in your heart, right, and leave that as your legacy, as something you want to be known for?
Well, and I think that you and I both know dozens of women, as well as being women, who know that we're lucky to have experienced life and still be alive.
Right.
In various circumstances. Not to take that too heavy, but, we all have challenges or relationships or things that...
Or health issues or...
anything that challenges our ability to maintain.
Right.
I think the awareness of sharing all that stuff and not being too, camouflaged is something that's changing a lot and makes me proud. And, sometimes I think about what I dreamt of. People ask me, like, what did you want to be when you were a little girl? And for some reason, I wanted to be the first woman president, but I thought everybody looked to the president for, like, advice.
I think they used to.
Right? Like, how are we going to get through this one? And to be the woman and to be the president and be able to talk to other women about how we should take care of each other just feels like what this is to me.
America has shifted so much. I can still remember one of my earliest memories being a small child, that if you're the youngest one in the house, you had to turn the TV channel because there were no remotes. And, it didn't matter how you voted. Like, I don't remember my family being Democrat, Republican at an early age. I just remember the president's on. Mm-hmm. We all need to sit down in front of the TV. You showed respect for the position. There is none of that. But media is moving too fast, too far ahead. And
with keeping with all that, that's one of the things that we were told recently is with media, podcasting is now 54% consumer, like 54% of the population
base, right,
listens to podcasts. So You know, it's one thing to sit at home on the couch or whatever with our friends and say, oh, we should or we want to, but deciding, okay, like we have important things that are important people that we want to showcase or talk about or highlight. You know, Christy started Canines for Cops, nearly
14 years ago. And I was just thinking about that too, you know, when I started Canines for Cops and I saw the dog had passed on television on the news, and I said, somebody should do something. That's just horrible. And I realized nobody was going to do anything unless I did. And so I started Canines for Cops. And, you know, I think we've given over 400 dogs globally and removed over $6 or $7 billion in contraband. And for the longest time, even when it was just launching, people would say, oh, you're so brave. How long do you think you'll have it? How long do you think it will take? Take for what? To save the world? It's an everyday. I got to show up every day and not get paid and sometimes get my ass chewed. So this seemed like a safe space compared to what I do in the nonprofit world.
Right, but the lesson still applies. Like no one else is showing up. So show up. So you showed up for Canines for Cops, and a few years later you showed up for Canines for Kids, which places, you know, active shooter apprehension canines in schools.
Absolutely.
Along with drug, narcotic detection dogs.
There should be
bomb
one in
detection
every
dogs.
School. Every single school should have one.
And another new announcement hopefully coming soon that I won't reveal now. But yeah, Canines for Cops and Canines for Kids, how we met and became friends, I feel like is shifting the landscape slowly but surely. And as we do additional board meetings and things, we hope to become more nationally recognized as a nonprofit.
I just, you know, every time we get in the mail, we open it up and, you know, if it's a child that's painted us a picture or if it's a handler that sent a letter just showing appreciation, you know, when a dog retires, how the town, that's become a part of the fabric of their community, the thread of their school. And they recognize that as a resource for safety and security. And just to watch bring people together, it's just, that's what makes my heart swell. Because you're definitely not going to get rich doing this.
No.
But it's rich in your heart. Well, on that note, we plan on dropping every Monday and Wednesday with some special outtakes on Fridays. So don't forget to go down and subscribe so you can be part of the Cool Kids Club and find us on all social media. It's spelled just like it sounds. Listen, Christy.
Say goodnight, Lucy.
Good night.